Hi Internet, Orc speaking. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to some more Rebalanced. Since the last recording, the temperature has risen dramatically, so my outfit's going to change, and I think that's a nice segue to doing a little bit of outdoor activities. Today, we are playing Donkey Kong with the Offroader. Now, the Offroader was one of the vehicles that we really wanted to tune, like, way before, like, in the very beginning of the Rebalanced development. As soon as we decided on making a bunch of vehicles and tuning everything up, the Offroader was definitely at the top of the list. Because, for some odd reason, Nintendo made a dune buggy, which is, what the Offroader is, and they tuned it to just be another car. It's not good at off-road, it's not good at really anything that you'd expect it to be, and it's just another really heavy, weird vehicle that for some odd reason could jump over other vehicles. So that's the very first thing that we did. We wanted to make sure that we had a vehicle that actually, plays the way it looks. But we need to back... Wow, how'd that fit get there? Oh, there's the ocean first. I didn't even see that. However, we'll talk about the development of the Offroader in a bit. But the very first thing that we needed to understand was the game balance design, which is... I don't know if there's a better term for it. I'm sure if actual game developers came around, they would be able to talk a little bit about it. But basically, the way that you balance a game, depending on the person, there's a lot of different ways that you could balance really anything. And the way I wanted to balance Rebalanced, take a shot every time I say the word balance, but the way I wanted to tune up the game was to actually have some kind of system, some kind of, formula to base everything off of, instead of just randomly, punching statistics out and adjusting parameters. So we came up with the very simple rock, paper, scissors. We used the basic RPS element, which a lot of competitive games, use. So we wanted to make three major vehicle archetypes that kind of counter each other. And we knew that we wanted a speed-based vehicle, so speed-based vehicles are like the Flame Runner. And what would you do to compete against something like the Flame Runner? Well, if you have something that's very heavy, a weight class vehicle that could somewhat keep up would trounce a speed class vehicle. So a weight class vehicle on average will destroy a speed class vehicle. It's like, okay, well then what happens if you take away the weight class vehicle's greatest strength, which is the ability to, throw people around? Well, then you need a vehicle that's based off of acceleration. A vehicle that could take a beating, they could get hit, they come right back, and, they're ready to rock and roll again. And as you probably could have guessed, a speed vehicle will outdo an acceleration vehicle pretty much every single time, because acceleration vehicles are not that fast. So they just get outrun. So you end up with this rock, paper, scissors RPS element of balance, which is, what the original design for Rebalanced was. However, this also came to our attention that, what about the off-road based vehicles? The off-road based vehicles could have been like some kind of subset category, but we wanted to do something special with the off-road vehicles. So we decided to make them their own separate category that's outside of that rock, paper, scissors meta. So we then next decided to, okay, so we're going to balance off of those three basic major archetypes. Well, it's technically four. The Offroader just doesn't have a counter. The Offroader, or off-road based vehicles, the counter is depending on the track, whether the track has off-road or not. So it's very simple to understand from that perspective. So we were like, okay, now how do we make every vehicle feel unique? Because contrary to popular belief, Mario Kart Rebalanced does not have, I've already said this on the other race, but it's not a bunch of random parameters. They all follow a specific subcategory. So for instance, the Corsa-based vehicles, the mini turbo-based vehicles, and just the standard speed vehicles are all part of that speed meta class. And then the weight vehicles are like vehicles like the Warrior Bike, vehicles like the Piranha Prowler, and acceleration vehicles are vehicles like the Baby Booster, vehicles like, what else? A lot of lightweight vehicles tended to fall inside of the acceleration category. It reminds me of like those old games like F-Zero, where you only get to play one vehicle, right? But you could tune, at least in F-Zero GX, you could tune what kind of characteristics that vehicle had. That's what we were trying to go for. Now, obviously, we couldn't add a tuning system, which, as cool as that would be, that would require a complete rework of the entire game, which, we weren't interested in. Hold on, I want to try something. I'm curious if that works. That's something I've always been curious about, and I've never seen people do, like dropping the fib or dropping some kind of banana or something inside of a little gap when you go over. Anyway, what was I talking about? The characters and other subcategories. So we came up with this idea since we can't adjust the parameters, since you can't have a toggle slider to give your car more acceleration and less speed, and vice versa, we're like, okay, we need to build a bunch of vehicles on the graph, on the chart. Which is why, you know, the Mach Bike exists, which is why the Phantom exists, which is why the Flame Runner exists, and the Spear. Because they're all the same vehicle archetype. They're just different tunes to give you, a little bit more options. So you could have one that has more speed, one that has more mini turbo, one that has more acceleration. I don't want to speak too soon, but I think I may have set the CPU difficulty a little bit too easy on this account. I'm playing on another license, so that probably got reset. Which is why I'm not struggling with the CPU so much. So anyway, this is where a lot of people are asking the characters. How do the characters fit in? Are the characters tuned? Are they balanced? And we need to come up with a better term for it. Right now, we're just calling them subcategories. So there's major categories, which are like the speed vehicle class, the weight vehicle class, the major archetypes. And then there are other subcategories, which we're just calling them subcategories, which are like the Corsa vehicles, the weight class vehicles, the acceleration class vehicles, whether they have off-road, whether they're performance transmissions. Those are subcategories. And then inside of those subcategories, I think the term I came up with is a minor category. I forgot that the change-arm swings that way. So there's subcategories, major categories, subcategories, and then there's minor categories. Minor categories are where things like the track pick and the vehicle, not the vehicle, and the characters come in. So characters are part of that subset. So, some people are asking, is Funky Kong still meta inside of Rebalanced? Yes and no. And that goes with every character. Every character has been tuned to do a very specific thing. So they are those, I kind of lied earlier when I said that we couldn't add that like F0 GX kind of ability to slightly modify tunes and slightly modify the vehicle, the way that they handle it, the way that they feel. The way that you do that is with the characters. So it's a simple addition. You add the character stats on top of the vehicle stats, and then that's the combination that you get. So, depending on, like for instance, the off-roader, Donkey Kong would generally be considered a good vehicle for the off-roader. Probably not that good for a lot of other vehicles, because Donkey Kong tends to give a lot of off-road, which, playing the off-roader, especially on a track like this where I could take the shortcut for free, is a very nice bonus. Or a track like this. This is another perfectly good off-road track, which I will be trying to abuse as best as I can. I've been struggling on this specific track with a cart. I don't know why. Like, when we released the Rebalanced mod pack, one thing I wanted to do was challenges as well for the 1 month that I'm playing the game. And I decided, why don't we do like an online time attack where instead of getting times offline, you have to get the time online. And then you could compare them and compete against other people in likewise class. So I've been doing a lot of that because you have to pick a combination ahead of time for the challenge. You can't switch around vehicles, and you have to choose a class ahead of time to compete in. So I decided to go with the Standard Kart M. Standard Kart M with Daisy. And I've been getting a lot of kart practice, but it's very clear to me that I'm not a karter. And I think instead of helping me and teaching me how to play this track on a kart, I think it's been hurting me. Because I have like a lot of really bad habits from driving a bike that I take like bike lines, and I can't even get on top of the Ultra because I take a bike method to get on top of it where a kart slides outward. Really something that you have to wrap your head around. And jumping from vehicle to vehicle is not the easiest thing to do. So I definitely recommend, if you plan to play Rebalanced, stick with one vehicle. Learn one vehicle, get good at that vehicle. You'll enjoy the mod way more than if you bounce around, it's kind of an age-old question. It brings up a philosophical question. Do you, when you're learning a game, do you pick a vehicle combination and you stick with it, which is ideal, but then how do you know that it's something that you'll like, right? Who knows? Maybe the combination is not suited to you. Maybe you were supposed to play a completely different vehicle combination, but you stuck with the wrong one. Inside of competitive gaming, that's a little bit more of a question that's asked, and to this day, I don't quite have an answer for it, because for me, I've always been I always gravitate towards specific vehicle combinations. So I've never had that issue of picking, but I understand that a lot of people do. So I don't know. Sound off in the comments section below. What do you think? Where do you stand on that opinion? Do you spend more time finding what you like, or do you use that time to invest in a single combination and get really good at that, and then transfer that skill to some other vehicle? Well, anyway, this is the last race, so since the CPUs haven't been giving me too much of an issue, I want to talk a little bit about this vehicle specifically, the balance and the tuning process of the Offroader. Now, the Offroader, since we had such a clear design of what we wanted to do, it was actually not one of the first vehicles that was tuned up. stay away from me. The cataquacks actually chase you offline. It's weird to see. So we were like, okay, we want to learn more. At least this was back when I was running solo, so it was just me and like a handful of people. Shout outs to Atlas, by the way. He was one of the first people who helped me out with all that. So I should probably be going down the center. This thing has incredible off-road. Alright. So anyway, we were like, okay, we know what the off-roader wants to be. It wants to be a dune buggy, and that, assuming that we know how to adjust the parameters, that shouldn't be too difficult to do. The problem is we didn't. At least I didn't. So the first vehicles that we did were like the standard bike, the shooting star, the warrior bike, the really extravagant stuff. Because we wanted to, I keep saying we because I'm so used to it. At the time, I wanted to learn what the individual parameters did. Because there's like a little application that you adjust the individual code to adjust the parameters for different characteristics of the vehicle. Alright, just focus up, just drive straight. So that's why the warrior bike, even though we had such a clear idea of what we wanted it to do, was never actually developed until much later, until we were familiar with the tools that we were using to modify stuff. I'm going to run this one a little bit longer because there's a few things that I think you guys would be interested in. We tuned the off-roader to have a wide drift start distance, so that means instead of rotating 45 degrees when you're drifting, it actually rotates 50. It rotates a little bit more, so it gives this feeling of a loose, kind of like not fully in control. But at the same time, once you get used to it, it's very, very fun to drive. And of course, it has great off-road, and it is incredibly light. Since the CPUs were set on the wrong difficulty, you didn't really get to see that. But trust me, when you play online, the dune buggy is incredibly light. So keep an eye out for that. Be sure to grab your copy of Mario Kart Rebalanced version 5 today. Be sure to join the Discord server for technical supports and how to install, and have fun. Mario Kart Rebalanced version 5, available now.